Hello and welcome to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. Today we have got Steve Williams from Trunk Travel. Trunk Travel is based in Thailand and they are our provider that we use for our new trip to Thailand. So I thought as we've launched the trip to Thailand this week, it would be great to get Steve on the show. So hi, Steve.
Hello there. Sawadee Kab, everybody.
Steve, do you want to start off by giving us I think you are a true expert in Thailand. You've been there for a long time now. You live in Thailand. So do you want to just give us a brief history of how you got to Thailand and what you've done since you've been there?
Yeah, I'd love to. I came over to Thailand volunteering on some rural projects sort of 17 and a half years ago. I spent about 2 months working with elephants, teaching English to children, building and painting classrooms in rural schools in Thailand. And it completely changed my life. It was my first long-term trip to Thailand. And I was working out really in the sticks, really in the jungles up in the north and over in the very east of Thailand and a little bit on Phuket as well. And coming from a very corporate background in the UK, doing something like that was a complete role reversal for me. It was something that I never really thought about doing. I never really looked into doing. It was just that this trip that I was on, we needed to incorporate some volunteering into it. And I got involved with that. And it just, some kind of switch inside me flicked. And it was compounded by the fact that the people in Thailand were just so welcoming. The food over here is just mouth-watering and ridiculously cheap. Obviously, the weather speaks for itself. We've got beaches, we've got mountains, we've got elephants. And so I just fell in love with what I was doing. And I was fortunate enough to be offered a job by the organization that I was volunteering with. And I grabbed it with both hands. That kind of just snowballed into them asking me to come and do the job from Thailand, which I did. And I arrived on a 3-month visa, and that was nearly 17 years ago. So it was one of those opportunities that just presented itself, and I jumped on board with it and never looked back.
Okay, so when did you then think I'm going to set my own business up now in Thailand?
Well, it's something that I've always been interested in. I've always looked at myself as a little bit of an entrepreneur, I guess, and I've always liked to delve into business ideas and business concepts. And through the work I was doing with this volunteering organization, they kind of shifted their focus more from helping people and putting communities and their projects first to being more focused on profit, which wasn't the reason that I came over to Thailand. So what I decided to do was to take the good bits of that organization, the original pieces, and build them in a way that I thought was the right way forward for a company that prides itself on offering sustainable tourism, offering volunteering projects that genuinely do help communities and that look after elephants. And so I just decided one day, that's it. I'm gonna leave the organization that I was with, that had kind of gone from being an organization more to being a business, and set up my own organization, which is what I did. And the original was called the Bamboo Project, and that was completely bootstrapped by myself from my office at home, working ridiculous hours a day to try and get that off the ground. And that's since evolved into becoming more of a ground operator now.
Okay, so obviously I was looking for an operator in Thailand for the Bucket List company to use. And what struck me was your sustainability policy and how you guys work. Obviously, there's the whole elephant issue in Thailand, and you're now called Trunk Travel, which obviously elephants are a big part of what you do. So, do you just want to explain to people about your sustainability project and how you choose who you work with in Thailand?
Yeah, of course. Sustainability for us is something that is going to be driving the tourism market over the coming years. I think the more sustainable policy that you have within your travel company, whether you're an outbound operator or whether you're a boots on the ground operator, such as we are, I think that's going to play a major part in how people decide who they're going to be traveling with. There's always going to be that market for the fly and flop holidays, and there's going to be the market for the backpacker sort of party holidays. But I think travelers are becoming more conscious about effects that they have on communities. Every day we're hearing about over tourism and mass tourism, and the negative effect that it has on countries and locations and communities in particular. So what we do is, as a company, we are always looking for the latest ideas in sustainability, how we can ensure that what we do only positively impacts the communities that we go to. And what I mean by that is, for an example, is obviously the company's called Trunk Travel, and we have a very elephant-centric focus on what we do, even down to a part of our profits are donated to various elephant welfare communities and organizations within Thailand. When we're working with elephants, we make sure that we go and we heavily vet every location that we go into anyway, to ensure that they're offering very high standard of elephant welfare, but also to ensure that the elephants aren't a commodity. We're not just trading in elephants, so to speak. The money that we pay to an elephant camp or a sanctuary, we want to make sure that that money is going not only to the hands of the landowners and the elephant owners, but to the wider community. It's the classic wealth share mentality, really, so that we're supporting everybody that comes into contact with the elephant camp. So if we're going to go and eat as a group, we're going to eat in a local family-owned restaurant. If we're going to stay in accommodation close by to an elephant camp, we're going to stay in one that is owned by a local family that employs local people, that will purchase its produce, will purchase it will hire staff from the local villages, and it will keep everything within that particular area. We don't run big groups. We only run small sort of boutique groups, so a maximum of about 16 to 20 people at any one time. And we'll do our very best where possible to ensure that any accommodation that we use has as much of a green impact that it possibly can on the community. So there'll be limited single-use plastics. Preferably there'll be no single-use plastics, but the world is in that transitional period at the moment where single-use plastics is still around. We'll make sure that they look after their refuse and their garbage properly, that they have recycling as part of the way that they operate as a business, and just really make sure that we're doing everything as well as we possibly can. Thailand is still, in the most part, a developing world, so it's still jumping on board with the whole environmental issues. So it's not always easy to do that. We're not going to hit the mark 100% of the time. But if we can try and hit the mark 100% of the time, then we're going to get as close as we possibly can to it from what you'll be allowed to do or what you can possibly do in a country like Thailand.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I was out in Thailand with you a couple of weeks ago, and we went on an electric tuk-tuk for the first time. It was the first time you had been on an electric tuk-tuk at the same time. So yeah, Thailand is really thinking environmental, and they are trying, but I could see they've got a long way to go in some respects.
Yeah, they certainly have. And I mean, you can just walk into a convenience store in Thailand and looking at how they package their food, for example, in layers of plastic, and then they give it to you in a plastic bag. I think it's these little pieces that have the ultimate impact. I believe that Thailand is one of the greatest producers of litter that's found in the sea, and it's plastic bags, and it's those sorts of things that they can make an immediate impact on the planet if they can just get over this mentality of everybody must have something plastic at all times. And as soon as they do that, I think you'll begin to really see great steps forward in Thailand becoming more of an environmentally conscious country.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because obviously one of Thailand's best assets are the islands and the beaches, so you'd think they'd want to try and get those preserved. We know that, the beach in Phi Phi is currently closed, isn't it? The famous beach
Maya Bay.
For that
reason.
reason.
Exactly. And over the last 3 years that they've closed the beach, they've seen an unprecedented regeneration of local coral, of marine life, and obviously of the natural beauty of the island itself. And they've realised now, the proof is in the pudding, that if they can control the number of tourists that go there, and they can control like waste management within that particular region, that if they can do it in that one bay, then they can do it all over the island. And it's this generational educational problem that countries like Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, they're going to have this. I think you're going to see a lot of the younger Thai generation now getting older with a mentality of, we can't be burning plastic. But if you go into the sticks, if you go into the outer reaches of Thailand, that's how they get rid of plastic, because there is no recycling plant. They stick it in a pile on the side of the road and they set fire to it, because they don't understand the impact that it has, in general. And once the younger people are taught this in school and they then take that onto their life as they get older, you'll start to see that having an effect. Is it a little too late? Time will tell, sadly, but at least they're doing something.
Yeah, perfect. So obviously a lot of people go to Thailand and they will go down to Phuket, and they, that is the holiday destination for a lot of Thai people. Obviously there is plenty more to Thailand to see, and I certainly experienced that when I was there. What would you say were the top 5 things to go and see in Thailand if you were heading there on a trip?
Oh, that's the $1 million question. There's a lot of top 5s. For me personally, it has to be the elephants, because it's the one thing that really resonated with me. It's where my heart is in Thailand. I think as well, Bangkok, which is now my home, I think is one of the greatest cities on the planet, and it's getting better, as you mentioned previously, with the electric tuk-tuks and the very affordable electric tuk-tuks as well, which really surprised me. And then you've got the national parks up in Chiang Mai. You've got Doi Suthep National Park, and then in sort of the central areas, you've got Khao Sok National Park, which is where your bucket listers will be heading. And then you've got such a diverse community of people down in the south as well. So I guess if I had to say a top 5, it would be the elephants. It would be Chiang Mai. Khao Sok National Park is absolutely stunning. And then you can't not create a top 5 of Thailand without mentioning the beaches. And for me, my 2 favorites, I've got to say, are, I think, Railay Beach in Krabi and Phuket.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Phuket has this stigma with it, with tourists. Everyone heads to Phuket. It's where the main airport is to get down to the island. And I had a really good time on Phuket. I think it was very, in terms of westernization, it was quite westernized in terms of a holiday destination. But I think, like you say, you then want to head out to the islands and visit the islands as well then. Absolutely.
And you can do that so easily from Phuket. I think for me, Phuket is such a nice location because you've got several, I guess, smaller areas on the island that cater for different types of people. The one that everybody knows of is Patong, because that's where the nightlife central is. But if that's not what floats your boat, then up in the north in Bang Tao, you've got a very family orientated area. Down in the very south in Hawaii, you've got great areas for snorkeling. On either side of the island, you've got fantastic sunsets and sunrises. And it's just kind of making sure that you research which area you want to visit, depending on what it is you want to get from it. But then from there, you've got the Similan Islands, you've got the Phi Phi Islands. You can easily get over to Koh Lanta and Krabi. There's a lot going on in that particular region. And it's just stunning for the natural beauty of the limestone mountains, of the crystal clear, warm sea. And it's got pretty much everything in between. I agree completely with what you're saying about the westernization. And I think that's purely because Phuket attracts 30 million visitors a year. And that's what they feel people are coming for. But in actual fact, they're not. They're coming for a slice of Thailand. But now, if you stay away from the Patong area, it's you can step into real Thailand, real Thai life. But it's just to stay away from the main beachside resorts, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think Patong should be on everyone's bucket list to go and see it, because it's a very interesting place, and it is Thai tourism all there. In everything you hear about Thailand is in one place in Patong.
Absolutely right.
I think but I would say a couple of days there to experience it, and then head off to one of the islands in.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and you can't mention Patong without saying that it's arguably one of the most beautiful beaches on the island as well. So once you're there, you've got a stunning beach just meters from the doorstep, and then you've got some fantastic restaurants, Sam's Steak Grill, for example, and then you've got the street food as well. So you've got it all there, from 5-star resorts through to street foods outside the convenience store. It's got everything.
When would you say was the best time to visit Thailand, Steve?
Definitely from the end of November through to the end of February, middle of March time. That's the dry season. It's the time of the year with the lowest humidity. So it's lovely and warm in the day, and it can get quite cool overnight. So you don't even really need air conditioning overnight. You can just sleep with a fan on the window open. But there's no rain, and so there's no reason for you to not get outside and enjoy yourself.
But do you think you could visit Thailand 12 months of the year? Is Thailand a 12-month destination?
100%. Yeah. I mean, you were here during rainy season, and we had a few rain showers. A lot of people have this misconception that the rainy season means that it's going to rain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it couldn't be further from that. What generally happens is you get a thunderous downpour for about an hour around sunset, and then that's it. It's gone. It's unlikely you'll get a long day of rain. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but I could count on one hand the amount of times that I've had a day completely washed out by rain.
Yeah. It was like you say, it didn't stop me from doing anything on my recent visit.
Yeah, exactly. And if the rain comes, you just find some shelter, and it's usually gone within an hour maximum.
And then everything's dry again.
Yeah, pretty much within minutes. Yeah.
Obviously, Thailand stayed locked down for quite a while, after the pandemic. Would you say Thailand is 100% back to normal now?
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to what the government say, yeah, there is no mask mandate anymore. You can walk around without a mask on, although you will be in the minority. The only people I see walking around the streets of Thailand at the moment are tourists. Thai people, Asian people in general, will wear a mask throughout the day pre-COVID. It's quite normal. And it comes down to two things, really. One is the smell from the cooking on the street food. Second one is diesel fumes. People just want to wear some protection against that. So for them to transition into being forced to wear a mask 24 hours a day was not a big step for locals at all. And I think the majority of Thais they've fostered that now, and they'll keep wearing a mask. But you certainly don't have to wear a mask. It is still encouraged in areas where there's a big group of people, such as indoor shopping malls. But if you're out and about and you're walking down the street, or you're at the beach, or even in the bar or in the restaurant, you don't have to wear a mask anymore. And in terms of interprovincial travel or moving around the country, you are encouraged to wear masks on flights. but that's about it. That's really it. The latest figures in terms of vaccinations is Thailand's at about 89% of the population is now fully vaccinated. So yeah, it's pretty much as you were.
And that's what shocked me when I went, is when you say fully vaccinated, how many vaccination jabs is that?
Well, I've just had my fifth. So yeah. And funnily enough, that was the only one I've ever had any kind of reaction to. I just felt like I'd been hit by a steamroller for 24 hours. But other than that, they in Thailand, they do encourage you to have a booster every 3 months.
And how would you say tourism businesses in Thailand have survived through the pandemic?
How have they survived?
Well, in terms of, is everybody now back open, or are there places that a lot of places have shut down, or how would you feel?
A lot of places shut down. I remember probably 6 months into the pandemic, I was on Koh Samui Island, and we had a driver down there, and we were talking to him about hotels, and he said that 50% of the hotels on Koh Samui had shut, and 80% of those had closed for good. And that was only 6 months into the pandemic. So that will give you an indication what things weren't going to get any better. So you will see a lot of boarded up places, but there's also a lot of new businesses opening. You know, entrepreneurs have seen this as a great time to get low cost office space, low cost shop space. There's a bit of a support now for businesses in the tourism industry that want to start. The government have started a campaign to help them. So I think, you know, in the next 6 months, a lot of these shops and restaurants that were closed will be reopening again. And certainly once tourism numbers increase, people will start trusting in refinancing industry that supports tourism. And you'll see it back to normal. I would imagine. We've got the high season coming up, so I think, you know, if we can get back to big numbers arriving in the high season, Thailand will get back on its feet. Thailand's incredibly resourceful. There doesn't really a year that goes by where Thailand doesn't make major front page news for something. Going back to the tsunami, and there's been something pretty much every year, be it a political problem, whether it be a respiratory problem, because we've had SARS and MERS over here, as well as COVID, and so on. And Thailand always seems to bounce back very quickly. And I don't see any reason why it won't after COVID.
Brilliant. And then I suppose we'll finish on then, you know, we at the Bucket List Company, we've wanted to launch a Thailand trip for a long time now. I was originally due to come out and see you in 2020. So that's how long we've had to delay it for. Yeah. And, you know, we wanted to create a best of Thailand trip to include many of those places that you mentioned when you were talking through your list. And obviously, it's very difficult to do that in a short period of time. But we wanted to try and create this trip that made you, got you to see everywhere you needed to in Thailand to really experience the true Thailand of the North and the South. Do you just want to run through quickly the itinerary that we put together as a group trip from us and explain why you've chosen those places to?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, to be honest with you, I've been creating tours in Thailand for 15 years. And I think this one firmly hits every nail squarely on the head in terms of, if you want to come to Thailand and experience as much as possible, this is the trip that has it all. It starts off in Bangkok for obvious reasons. And Bangkok is, like I say, it's one of my, if not my favorite city on the planet. It's as mad as a box of frogs. And you have to really get into the heart of it to experience it. You've got, we've included the electric tuk-tuks. We've also included electric scooter tour as well. We'll be staying around the very busy, bustling Khao San area of Thailand, which is in the old city, which is great for nighttime entertainment. It's great for markets. It's great for street food. And then from Bangkok, we're going to be heading north up to Chiang Mai, which is a wonderful city. It's got a great sort of coffee shop culture to it. It's very laid back. But the reason we're going up to Chiang Mai isn't necessarily Chiang Mai city. We're going to spend a couple of nights with the elephants out in the jungle, which I know you did and thoroughly enjoyed when you were over here. Then after working with the elephants and getting up close and personal with them, we're going to take an overnight jungle trek where we're going to be trekking up one of the mountains and staying in a hill tribe community and living as the hill tribes do, the mystical hill tribes, which is fascinating. It's seriously steeped in culture, and it gives you a real good insight into how the hill tribes live and work and coexist. Then from Chiang Mai, we do have a final night in Chiang Mai where we'll head out to the night bazaar, which is great. It's just full of local artisans selling their crafts and paintings, and it's a wonderful place to just kind of kick back and people watch or pick up some souvenirs. And then we fly south down to the town of Surat Thani, which is the stop off for Khao Sok National Park. It's a quick transfer from the airport into the park. We will then be staying in the jungle on the banks of a river, and you can take a rubber ring and float down the lazy river. There'll be a night safari that night. So as we all know, the jungles begin to come alive once the sun sets. So we'll be figuring out where all these weird and wonderful sounds are coming from. Then from Khao Sok, we venture further south into Phuket, and we will be staying around the Patong area. And we'll be taking the group on a guided tour around the island, and they'll get to experience a lot more of Phuket and see why it is such a draw for tourists. And then from Phuket, we head further south still to the island of Koh Lanta, which is a place where everybody can kind of relax and recover, or they can choose to go scuba diving. It's one of the top scuba diving places in Southeast Asia. There's a couple of national park places. If they don't have their certification, they're welcome to take the open water course there and do that, or they can just opt for some fun dives if they're already divers. And then from there, it's back to Bangkok before we say a very teary farewell to the land of smiles.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, you know, it works out to be a 15-day trip. It will be 16 days in terms of your flight once we add the flight on as well. So I think in terms of, you know, cramming a lot of stuff in, we've managed to achieve that. But I think it's not going to feel rushed either in terms of.
Absolutely. I think that's the most important thing is you have to take a moment to kind of stand there and look around and take in your surroundings. You're coming halfway around the world. You want to make sure that you make the most of it. And this trip, I do firmly believe is the perfect balance between fun and adventure and relaxation and excitement. It's got it all.
Brilliant. Well, Steve, I can't thank you enough for your time on here. It's been really interesting to hear you speak about your time in Thailand and also the best places to visit. Obviously, I don't want to, we're not here just to sell the bucket list company trip. I wanted it to be informative as well for people who are thinking about traveling to Thailand. And, you know, if anyone wants to steal our itinerary as well, then of course they're more than welcome to use those ideas if you're listening to this podcast. So thanks very much, Steve. It's been a pleasure as always. And I hope to see you back in Thailand very soon.
The pleasure was truly mine, Keith. And yeah, let's make sure that you get back over here as soon as you can, mate.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much. Well, thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe and click the button. So next week, you'll get informed when our next episode appears. Thanks ever so much. And we'll speak to you next week. Bye-bye.